take a second. All right. Hello out there in YouTube. We are here with the one and only Rob Watts from Chord Electronics. Thank you so much for being here with us today.
It's great. Wonderful to be here.
Pleasure to have you. So everybody out there, if you can see this and hear this right now, like we always do, let us know how our audio levels are. Of course, we are on a live showroom floor from CanJam SoCal 2022, and it's packed, a packed house.
We're at the Source at CanJam SoCal.
And we are at the Source AV right now. Yep, exactly. And we got multiple tables of incredible equipment here to check out. So if you're in the area and you haven't got a ticket to CanJam, you should come down and get down here and check it out. But if you're not, that's why we're here. We're here for you to check out all weekend long, different, interviews, product reveals, and all kinds of fun stuff we're going to be doing all weekend long. So drop me a comment and let me know out there, how's our audio levels? Give it a sec here. Looks like the stream health is good. Awesome. Okay, cool. Well, if you guys let me know if anything needs to come up or down in volume, and we're just going to get started. So how was your flight in?
It was pretty good. Yeah, it was pretty good. Booked up.
Yeah.
The business class was completely full. Premium economy was completely full. And people kept saying after COVID, people would stop business travel and that kind of stuff. It ain't happening.
Nope, it's probably just as packed as ever.
It's worse than ever. Yep. I think there's so much demand for traveling after COVID. People just want to get on a plane and do something interesting.
100%.
Yeah.
100%. Cool. So for those of you out there that don't know who Rob is, I don't know who doesn't know who Rob is, but he is a legend from Chord Electronics and one of my favorite, if not favorite, digital analog converter makers in the industry. I own multiple Chord products, from the Chord Hugo TT2, the Hugo 2, the To-Go 2IU module, the Annie, and I mean, I would probably spend most all my paychecks on Chord stuff because I like it that much. But so today we want to talk a little bit about, we're going to talk about some of the new product releases that you guys have most recently, and then of course we just also want to get to know you a little bit. The viewers out there want to know who you are. Also often we just talk tech, which we will do, of course. But sometimes we want to know other fun stuff. So let's start with the fun stuff. So tell our viewers a little bit about you and what you enjoy when you're not working.
Oh, when I'm not working, I watch on my home theater. So Game of Thrones.
Yes.
Big fan of Game of Thrones.
You watching the new House of Dragons?
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
It's going to be interesting, that one. It's going to see how that pans out.
Yep.
And the funny thing is that I read the books when they first came out.
Right.
And it was so frustrating because the books, it would take so long to come out. And 2004, I went into a store and saw a new cover of, I think it was the third book.
Right.
Wow, okay, bought it. And then opened it up and actually got back home and read the first few pages. I've read this before.
Oh,
they just changed the cover. It wasn't a new one. And we had to wait till, 2012. It was a huge amount of times of delays.
Yes.
So George R. Martin, if you're watching this, come on, get on, let's do it.
Please. I mean, this been funny too, because when Game of Thrones ended, before House of Dragons started, that last season, I was bummed out, man. I felt like they just phoned it in. Yeah. They were leaving like Starbucks coffee cups in multiple shots. I felt like there was every week, there was some weird thing.
And the first 5 or 6 seasons were just so
good.
Damn good.
So good.
And it was gutting.
Yeah.
And everything about it was good. The scripts, the cinematography, the acting was superb.
Yep.
The music was brilliant. I've got some of the music tracks that I use, when I'm just listening normally.
Right.
Everything about it was just perfect. And then they just, let it down.
Yeah, I think they knew it was coming to an end, and I think they got disappointed, and everybody started just kind of going halfway. Yeah. Okay, so home theater. What type of home theater? Tell us about.
Well, it's actually very simple. What I do is use the NVIDIA device.
Okay.
The benefit of that is that you can set the delays on the video as a negative delay.
Okay.
So you can run the M scaler in it at full 1 million taps.
Wow.
That makes a huge difference to the sound quality. So I'm really excited about. You've actually got the ability to go to 1 second. So in the future, when we have bigger M scalers and more expensive M scalers,
Right.
something that I'm very much working on.
Yeah.
I've already got the 1 second delay working, and it's quite a big change when you max out that thing.
That's killer.
So, and I don't like surround sound.
Right.
I like regular
Some
stereo.
people like either just 2-channel or 2.1 or whatever. Yeah.
And you get much better depth.
Yeah.
You get much better instrument separation and focus.
And the imaging too.
Imaging
Yeah.
is just rock solid.
Yep.
And I don't care about little noises
Sure,
just behind you.
sure.
Because everything just gets out of focus and blurry.
Well, and it still travels, even with 2-channel or 2.1, it still travels
Yeah.
left to right, and sometimes sound reflections alone, you know, in the room can give you a sense of stuff,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's cool. So you heard it here first. He's working on a bigger M scaler. That's pretty cool. I actually want to add the M scaler to my TT2. That's something I'm gonna do that in the future.
Because the real benefits of the M scaler is, I mean, when you do an A/B test and you listen to it, you can, most people can hear quite a substantial difference. But the real benefits is a musical one.
Right.
So timbre variation. Now that's not something you latch onto easily,
Right.
but it's something you enjoy when you're actually enjoying listening to music.
Yeah.
And pitch discrimination, all these things get so much better.
Yeah.
So the musicality, you're actually enjoying the music more with the M scaler.
And the form factor's sweet. It's just a perfect stack. It goes right with it. So I mean, it's kind of a no-brainer. It's just a matter of doing it and getting it done. So
And once you get used to the sound of the scaler, I can't live without it.
that's what I've heard. Yeah.
So when I'm flying, I take an M scaler with me.
Really?
Even if I'm flying economy,
Yeah.
I'll put it in a bag.
Like in a laptop bag or something like that.
Bag, and I'll have a power pack, and I'll run everything that way. If I'm
That's
flying
awesome.
business class, it's easy because
Easier,
you've
yeah,
got a
for
shelf
sure.
to put it on there.
Yep.
So I've had a few interesting conversations with air stewardesses about what are all these flashing lights and
Right.
things, what's it doing? So
Yep.
it's cool.
Yeah, I love the flashing lights. I don't know. I mean, that's one of the first things, because a lot of times in this hobby, right, because not everybody can go down to the Source AV because they might not be in Los Angeles region, right, and their local dealer may not have a place they can go listen to a product. So how a product looks, aesthetics is important, and you guys have some of the most unique aesthetics in audio. Which
So that's down to John Franks of Chord.
Yeah.
So Chord do all the metalwork stuff and the visuals.
It's beautiful.
And I really like, the backlight LEDs.
Yeah.
I liked when he first suggested it. I loved the concept because it's easy to implement and you can see what's going on across the room.
Yeah.
When you can't read the display, you can tell from the color what the volume is. You can tell that your sample rate is correct, and you immediately know if there's a problem.
Exactly.
So that kind of visual feedback is really easy and really good.
Yeah, I love it. Even when I'm listening, so I recently, this is probably why I can't get the M scaler yet. I recently bought a pair of Sonus Faber Olympica Nova 5 tower speakers.
Nice.
Beautiful. And I run actually right now, my amplifier right now that I have, I'm borrowing from the Source AV, is one of your integrated stereo amplifiers. One of your flagship ones. It's amazing, especially with those speakers.
Yeah.
It really drives them. But I have the Chord TT2 as doing DAC duty, and I feed it in from the TYU to go module. And when I turn off all the lights in the room, and I'll put on a couple LEDs here and there. But it's cool to watch like you're saying, the TT2 changes colors and it backlights the back wall. I'm listening on it. It's just, it creates a cool environment.
The lovely thing about the TT2 is the volume control knob.
I love that.
And that was very clever what John did with that.
It's glass, right? It's like a glass.
It's acrylic.
Acrylic resonance. It's so
it's
cool.
machined acrylic, and it's just a really cool, and it feels nice, and it looks good.
I love it. It's one of my favorite things too, especially if you're at a desk and you're just using with headphones.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Cool. Okay, cool. So, big Game of Thrones fan. What about, so tell us a little bit about what you like to listen to music-wise. What are some of your favorite genres and artists?
I'm pretty eclectic. So most of my listening is classical music.
Okay, cool.
And then I'll go from Hildegard von Bingen right up to Philip Glass.
Okay.
And everything in between.
Very cool.
And so I love classical, and I love all the genres of classical. But I also very much enjoy electronica.
Yeah, awesome.
So,
I love that.
And I like the crossover stuff between, like Max Richter, for example.
Yes, I'm a huge Max Richter fan.
A little bit of electronic and classical.
What about Nils Fromm? Have you heard Nils Fromm?
Yeah, Nils Fromm.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, he's good. He's
great.
Great.
This makes me so happy to hear. Because, all too often, like, you'll go to like different meets or you'll talk online and everybody say, wow, you're not a real audiophile unless you listen to jazz or classical. But the reality is like, what does it matter? You can listen to whatever you want, whatever you enjoy, And I listen to everything too, I'm like you, but electronica, man, sometimes you get the coolest acid jazz or classical mixed in with electronica, and then you're like getting the best of all worlds.
Sometimes I just like to, when I'm playing or something, and you just like dance music.
Exactly.
And it's just great.
Totally.
And so pretty eclectic on what I listen to.
That's awesome. Very cool. Okay, cool. I'm gonna check the chat right now, see if we have any questions.
All right, cool.
Christopher, what's up, man? Let's add that to here, so we can actually throw the people. Christopher chimed in, says, love hearing Rob Watts interviews. And then we got Grumpy Goose. Grumpy Goose, thanks, man. Grumpy Goose makes some of the coolest headphone stands. We don't carry them at the source, so this is not, I'm not shilling anything. He makes some of the coolest headphone stands in the business, and if you watch any of my YouTube videos I put out on the source, I usually feature these. I mean, they're beautiful, like wood, machined, and they look like geese, like the neck of a goose.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so that's kind of cool.
That's really cool.
All right, cool. So, talked about music a little bit. We talked about you like Game of Thrones. What is one of the most fun live shows you ever saw, like a concert or something?
Oh gosh, I'm gonna go blank now.
Well, that happens all the time. Think about it. Or what is one of your most? What was the first concert you ever saw?
I don't go to concerts. I remember now.
I don't know. I'm not sure. We're live right now, so.
The best concert was Queen in Singapore.
Oh my God! You saw Queen in Singapore?
Yeah, with Adam, whatever his name is.
Right.
Yeah, and that was in Formula One.
Yes.
So I normally go to Singapore Formula One, and the music there is really, really good. But Queen was just, Brian May he did a solo piece, and it was just absolutely spine-chilling, and that was just amazing. But I don't go to a lot of concerts.
Yeah.
And not often, the reason being is they just sound...
it's never as good.
It's never as good, and it's often very hard and too bright.
Yeah.
But that actually was mixed very well.
Yeah.
And before Queen, they had Kylie Minogue.
Yeah.
And I listened, and it was just dreadful. It was just so
it was rough.
hard.
Yeah.
And in your face, and I thought, oh God, if Queen is going to be like this. But then they have different mixing engineers.
If front of the house doesn't get it right, it's
They tend, and what I tend to do is to sit close to the mixing desk, because then you're not quite so. It's not quite so loud.
Yeah.
And you've got to protect your ears.
That's generally where I sit too, is behind or
just to the
left or right. Yep.
Of the where mixing the guy is, and you've got to protect your ears.
100%.
You can't go above 100. In fact, shouldn't really go above 80 dB.
Yeah, not for long periods. Yeah.
I'm really careful about my ears.
Yeah, I have different. So sometimes when I'm working and I'm doing filming or something like that, because I film when I'm not doing Source AV stuff or photography or whatever, I always have earplugs to protect my hearing. Yeah. And they filter out some of the higher level dB.
Yeah, we bought some flat earplugs the other day.
Yeah.
Sort of. And minus 20 dB or 20 dB.
That's it.
Attenuation, but they're flat frequency response.
Right.
And they're so good they actually don't sound like they're doing very much.
Yeah, which is what you want.
Normally you put them in and you lose all the high frequencies and that's gone. But these things, you put them in and, well, it's quieter, but it sounds the same. So they're pretty cool.
Well, and like you said, you only have hearing once. You can't get it back. Yeah. So you've got to protect it.
You've got to protect it.
All right, let's see. All right, keep any questions you guys have. Okay, let's see. It says Christopher has a question. I don't know if we can answer it, but we're gonna try. Let's see. When can they expect Rob's No Limit DAC?
Okay, so
I don't know what that. That's news to me. So I'll throw that question up here for the broadcast so people can know.
This was put out a year or so ago, and I've been working on what we're calling the Ultima DAC.
Okay.
Chord have
to match the Ultima
range.
line. Yes.
Yeah. So it's a large,
beefy, yeah.
big device. So I've been working on that a lot, and I was reluctant to get involved with doing, a very expensive DAC.
Sure.
Because there were so many different things I needed to understand.
Right.
And what I don't want to do is to milk the market and sell a product just because it's expensive, which a lot of companies do.
A lot of them do.
And then they update it 3 years' time and they get people in to buy it. So I needed to feel that my technology and where I was at in terms of understanding how things make a difference to the sound was mature. So that
makes sense.
And I've been seeing so many changes over the last 10 years. There's been a huge number of different changes.
Yes.
So the issue with the upsampling, the M scaler, over COVID, I've been working on this bigger M scaler. I've now bottomed out all of the issues that are involved in interpolation.
Right.
So I now feel like I completely understand that. And that's taken me 40 years to actually get a strong handle on all the factors that's involved in that. And on the DAC side, there's some really interesting stuff that's happened that's going into the Ultima. So the prototype design files were issued in June. They're busy building them at this moment in time. So I'm hoping, maybe next year we might be showing something, maybe the year after that.
Yeah, sure.
But it'll be finished when it's finished.
Yeah, you want to get it right. You don't want to rush it.
It's got to be absolutely right.
Yeah, especially at that level too.
Exactly.
With your Ultima series, it needs to be Ultima.
Exactly.
So.
And the other thing that I've been doing recently is doing my own recordings.
Cool.
Using Blumlin technique.
Okay.
Now I don't know if you know the Blumlin technique.
No.
Okay, so the Blumlin technique is where you just use a simple stereo microphone.
Okay.
And it's got a cardioid response. Have I said that right? Maybe I hasn't. I don't know. But anyway, what I use is a ribbon microphone.
Okay.
And the benefit of a ribbon microphone is that when it's off axis, there's no output.
Right.
So you're amplitude encoding the sound, and it's only to a stereo mic. So it goes straight into the ADC converter.
And your proximity is close to whatever you're recording, basically.
Well, in this one, in my case, it's orchestras.
Okay.
So we place the microphone about a meter or so behind where the conductor is.
Okay.
Setting that microphone positioning up is quite tricky to get the best sound quality.
I imagine.
But we've understood how to do that, and you get really, really good left to right lateral placement. In fact, the test recordings that I've been doing, which I've got on my blog, and people can download it themselves, the left to right placement accuracy is using stealth headphones. Dave.
So Dan Clark Audio stealth headphones.
Using the
Chord Dave
prototype of this new scaler.
Right.
The left to right accuracy is absolutely identical to the sound you get when it's completely perfect. But what's not perfect is the depth.
Sure.
So
which is so important.
So
and you get that right on.
That's what's different.
On your products, which that's something I love about.
About Chord because of the depth
100%,
perception.
100%.
So with this one, you if it's 4 meters away, the instrument, and so we were playing one of the instruments was a cello, and that was 4 meters away from the microphone.
Right.
With the Dave setup, it was sounding about 2.5 meters away. So you're losing
a little. You're losing some depth. Yeah.
And with say a Hugo 2, it's down to about 2 meters.
Right.
The Hugo 2 M scaler is down to about 2 meters. But if you use conventional DACs, it'll be half a foot.
Oh, it's flat. It's flat. Yeah.
And so that's
you might get a little bit, but it's not much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that really surprised me, because you think of digital, hard, bright.
Right.
Think of the stealths as being maybe to the bright side of neutral.
Yeah, a little forward in the upper mids, maybe.
Yeah, a little forward. Certainly compared to loudspeakers, it's a lot brighter.
Yes.
Headphones are a lot brighter than loudspeakers. That setup tonally is much the recording is much darker and warmer than the reality. So the reality is very bright.
Right.
The reproduced audio with the stealths, the Dave and thing, is actually warmer.
Right.
And also it's a lot softer.
That's cool.
So the sharp sounds that you get with real live music, it's being softened.
In a good way or
In a bad way.
Bad way, too much.
Because
Yeah.
you want
You're
things
losing.
to be sharp.
You're losing the transients, basically.
You want
yeah.
things to be sharp. Now I know what those issues are.
Yeah.
And it's down to the A to D converter.
Got it.
And the reason I'm going through, there's two reasons why I'm going through all this trouble.
Right.
Doing my own recordings and doing it as simply and transparently as possible, is to evaluate the whole reproduction train. Number one. The other thing is as a test bench for my A to D converter. Which is a pulse array A to D converter, which I've been working on since about 2005.
Very cool.
So this will solve a lot of the issues that we've got with A to D converters. So noise floor modulation is one. Lots of noise floor modulation on A to D converters. The small signal accuracy isn't very good.
Right.
And that's the reason why depth is being suppressed. And the aliasing is awful on an A to D converter. And that is partly responsible for this lack of sharpness that you should get with digital.
Right.
And it's strange to think that digital is softening leading edges.
Yeah.
Because we think of digital as being hard and bright.
Right.
The reality is, at least with my digital, it's that chain it's not hard and bright. It's too soft, too warm.
Yeah. That makes sense. So when you were building this process, just for our viewers out there, when you're tuning, your chips and you're getting it exactly the way you want, how much of that process is your ear tuning it, and how much of it is?
Some things you do a simple test,
right,
and you're just evaluating it. It doesn't take long to do.
Sure.
But something like the WTA algorithm, which sets the WTA filter, which is inside the M scaler.
Right.
On that, for example, my equations to create the coefficients, I've got 5 variables. Okay. And those 5 variables need to be listened to and modified.
Right.
And you go backwards and forwards, and you hone into
the sweet spot.
The sweet spot.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Cool.
And that sweet spot is set to within 10 parts per million.
Wow.
And you have to do that through listening tests.
Right.
And you have to listen to the instrument separation and focus.
Sure.
You have to listen to the timbre variation.
Right.
You have to listen to the pitch reproduction, particularly bass pitch reproduction.
Of course, yeah.
And you have to listen to the soundstage and evaluate all of those factors and make sure your optimization isn't damaging one of those but improving another one.
Right.
And then you have to move on to the next variable and the next variable and the next variable, and then you have to go back and recheck that changing the other variables hasn't screwed up the first variable.
Yep.
And so the WT algorithm is thousands upon thousands of these listening tests with specific tracks that I use to
you're most
actually,
familiar with it.
There's one track that I'll use for timbre variation. There's a couple of tracks that I use for depth. There's a specific track, and when I listen to that track, this is what I'm evaluating.
So I know what the people are thinking right now. They want to know, well, what are some of your favorite tracks for listening? So, like for me, I like Dire Straits a lot because it's really recorded really well.
The actual tracks that I use are pretty exotic.
Are they?
Yeah.
So maybe we could share them later and pop a few.
I've actually published them on my.
Oh, have you?
WhatsApp, and I can
send me a link and we could drop it in the video description because that would be cool.
Yeah.
So for me, the sound stage of Chord is immersive. I would describe it in one word. I mean, it's more than that, obviously, Rob, but it's immersive. Like, I've listened to many DACs now because I get to review different speakers and amplifiers and headphones on a regular basis. But for me, I've always really loved the immersion and three-dimensionality of being almost like you're put into the music, a live feeling, which, if you're in a really well-designed room that has a good front of house, and, like a theater that sounds really good, then a live show is amazing,
Yeah.
you know. But a lot of times, like we were discussing earlier, you don't always get that. So,
Absolutely.
but with Chord products, you are immersed in the music,
Yeah.
and it just is. That's why I have so many Chord products. I can't compare it. I go back and forth, and then, like you said, everything else feels flat. The depth isn't there.
That's about transparency.
Yeah.
But what my intent is about getting emotional when you're listening to the music.
100%.
So getting your spine to tingle,
Yep.
getting excited about when you're listening to the music, wanting to listen to music more and more and more. That's what I'm trying to accomplish.
I love that.
Because when you go to an unamplified classical concert and listen, you know, when you're close to the conductor and listen to it, it just sounds nothing like
Right.
reproduced sound. And what's more important, it's so easy to get emotional.
Yes.
And it's much more difficult to get emotional with reproduced music.
For sure.
So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to make it more
You're
emotional.
doing well. You're doing well.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're doing very well. It's funny sometimes, like when I review products, I literally, as I'm reviewing them, I'll make notes and stuff like that. And,
Sure.
you know, whether it's speakers or headphones or, you know, amplifiers or digital analog converters. And something I always am looking for is, did I just get some oxytocin released?
Yeah.
Am I
Yeah.
getting that feeling? And people are like, oxytocin, what are you talking about? I'm like, that's that good vibe that you feel. And music done right can release that.
Yeah.
So I love that that's part of your, part of what you are about.
What my intent.
Yeah, I love
that's
that.
the sole intent.
You don't hear that all the time. Sometimes you do, sometimes you don't, but not the way you put it so
Yeah.
elegantly. I like that.
Often manufacturers talk about it's the music, but what do you mean by that?
It's all of it. Yeah.
It's about musicality, and to
Sure.
me, musicality is about getting emotional with the music.
Yeah.
Right.
And it's about the number of times your spine tingles.
Yeah.
You know, when you're just
Get the hair standing up on your arm.
and you're just shutting out everything, the whole world ceases to exist, and you're just wrapped in the music. And there's technical reasons why my DACs are like that, and it's about making it easy for the brain to process the information, to understand what's going on.
Right.
And that's what's different about what I do. You know, I analyze and try to understand the effect of different distortions, different aberrations on how the brain is processing things.
Right.
And if it's easy for the brain to process things, then you could just enjoy the music.
You can escape, right?
You can escape.
You can escape.
And you don't get listening fatigue.
That's it.
You know.
Yeah, because it's the same reason why I love to watch, like, the House of Dragons
Yeah,
or whatever, or listen to music. Because reality, when I'm working and I'm listening to music, and I'm still finding if I can escape through it, but I'm still working. But when I'm just sitting down and listening or watching something, it's an escape for me. I want to just relax and tune out and just, and
Lose yourself.
lose myself in it. So I think that's super cool. Okay, so we heard about some new products coming out potentially in the future, and we have, so your newest release has been highly popular.
The Mojo 2.
The Mojo 2, it's been like going off shelves. You get them in and they're gone.
Yeah.
Talk to us a little bit about the excitement of the Mojo 2.
So the Mojo 2 is done really well. I mean, Chord can build 5,000 or 10,000 pieces in a month, and they're gone.
Gone, yeah.
And they're gone throughout the world. In fact, one place, I think it was South Korea, when it was launched, they had 500 units, and they were sold within an hour.
Wow.
Yeah, an hour.
That's incredible.
So
the Mojo 1 was highly popular.
It was
so,
extremely popular.
Yeah.
And Mojo 2 is a big step upgrade from Mojo 1.
Yeah, that's right, yeah.
I mean, I don't like to do trivial upgrades just to encourage a little bit of extra sales. I'm not in that business.
No, that's smart. Yeah.
So when I decide to do a project, it's because I want to do something.
Yeah.
And if I want to do something, I want to do something better.
Yes.
Make a substantial improvement.
Right.
So I'm not interested about just improving Chord sales. That's
Just
not
to-
what
just
I'm
to put out a new product.
Just to
Yeah.
make a little bit more money. That's not what motivates me.
Right.
What motivates me is to come up with something that fundamentally improves that.
Yes.
And so that's why it took 7 years.
Sure. It's better to take your time and get it right.
Exactly.
That's my motto.
Exactly.
Well, and the other thing too is when we spend money on an audio product or whatever it is, we don't want it to unnecessarily be replaced every year because, it's an investment, so we want to enjoy that and, not have to worry about, something brand new. I just bought this and now there's something new.
Yeah.
At least for me personally. Some people like that, but I tend to buy at a little higher price points and just want to hold on to it,
The changes are either trivial or they've made it worse.
Made it worse in some cases. I have some examples I won't name, but I've thought about that recently, actually. Yeah.
And it's just the marketing departments and the sales saying we need to push
sales
things going, and that's actually a problem for the lower price products.
Yeah.
So Mojo sales did decline.
Sure.
And it was because of not having the reviews, not having the buzz.
Right.
All the audiophiles had bought the product. So we were kind of stuck.
But it was still popular.
It was still popular.
Yeah.
But products like Dave is now 7 years old.
Yeah.
It is still selling as well today as it was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's just been amazing.
Yeah.
I expected that to plateau off and Chord to ring me up and start telling me to work on something.
No, it's pretty
new.
incredible.
But Dave's pretty amazing.
And I've heard, I haven't personally heard it with the M scaler, but I heard you can take the M scaler and add it to the Dave, and it's just like mind blowing. So
it puts it to another level.
Yeah, it's another one actually when I get a break, because I think we have both of them over there. Because I know we have the TT2 here with the M scaler, and I know we have the Dave. So I don't know if I'll ever get a break, but when I do. And the other thing is hard in this environment. We talked about this before we started recording, is that listening to an open back in this environment is a challenge. I'm sure our viewers can hear the background noise that's happening, but
that's the nice thing about the Stealth, because they're closed back. And I use my headphones for when I'm flying, because I do a lot of flying.
Right.
About 300 hours a year spent in a plane. And what's
that's
nice,
a lot.
That's a lot.
That's a lot of flying.
What's nice is just shutting out that noise.
Yes.
And the performance.
Those are incredible.
You can get with a Stealth, Hugo 2, and the M scaler. If somebody had told me in the 1980s the level of performance you would get from a headphone in an aircraft, I would have said that is just unbelievable.
Not possible.
Going back to vinyl days, you just some of the recordings that need some Pink Floyd stuff, particularly the earlier Pink Floyd,
right?
And before Dark Side of the Moon, before they had Dolby, the sound quality of the early stuff was really very impressive. And that's got sharpness to it and speed. The later Floyd stuff is a little softer. It's nice because that's the way it sounds, but the earlier stuff was much more interesting. And there were some albums I was playing recently that I hadn't played since the 80s. And it just sounds so much better.
Well, and they keep remastering too, which is nice. Sometimes, if they get it right.
Sometimes the remastering's better. Sometimes it's not. Let's go back to the original.
It's almost like the whole audio product equation thing too. Sometimes they're just remastering to sell new records, but it may not always be better.
Exactly.
What was I going to ask you? There was something we were talking about. Anyways, go on. Sorry, it'll come back to me. I lost it.
You've lost my train of thought.
I lost my train of thought. So basically, what I was...
One thing we haven't touched upon is the big thing about Mojo was the DSP.
Yes.
So when John Franks, when we talked about Mojo 2 about 4 or 5 years ago, so the project started 5 years ago, and one of the things he wanted to do was to get rid of the coupling capacitor.
Right.
That would make the bass a lot tighter, more extended and deeper. But the coupling capacitor was giving the warmth that Mojo 1 had.
Which is so well known for.
Which is what everybody liked, because if you're using inexpensive,
brighter, kind of harsher headphones,
you want something to tame it down.
Right.
So I've worked on DSP cores before for silicon projects, because in the past I spent 15 years designing silicon for digital audio for major chip manufacturers.
Awesome.
So I knew the issues involved with DSP, and I also knew that if we could have a transparent DSP, people could adjust the sounds
Right.
of Mojo 2
Yeah.
to suit it. So if you needed it to sound warmer and softer, you can do that.
You have the
If you
capability.
need it to sound sharper and brighter, you can do that with the EQ. So, and I have plenty of time to develop this. So this took a year or two to
Right.
put into place. It's a 104-bit DSP processor.
Wow.
You needed the 104 bits custom-coded core in order to get it to sound completely transparent.
Sure.
And it's working really well. And I know Chord were a little bit hesitant when I said this is what I'm doing. These are the buttons that's going to control the filter, and they kind of thought, yeah, you know, and
I like the simplicity of it. I'm
they
all
were-
about
they
that.
thought it was too complicated.
No, I just the colors. You press the button.
It's easy.
It's easy to me. It's
I said
done.
I said to them, it's intuitive, it's easy. People will get the hang of it.
It's just
Don't worry.
you get the hang of it after like one listening session
Exactly.
or two. You know,
Yeah.
it's easy.
And the nice thing about when we launched it, and people had product, you could go out in the store and buy it. The feedback the next day of people buying the product was how cool the DSP was, and how much of a game changer
You get
it
to
is.
interact with it physically too. Like, you know, I mean, for people that used to listen to a lot of vinyl, we would have the whole process of, you know, cleaning the record, putting the record on the platter, dropping it, you know, and going through the whole process, using your static gun or whatever. So, you know, I don't know, it's nice for me to have physical anything, which is one of the things I like about your products. Oh, I remember what I was going to say.
Okay.
So it was because you mentioned the Stealth and with the Hugo 2, and when I reviewed the Stealth, I found that my TT2 and Hugo 2 had just an incredible synergy with the Stealth.
Yes.
There's just something between those two products. And I live streamed with Dan Clark from Dan Clark Audio, and we talked about it a little bit, and I asked it, you know, is this part of how you tuned it? And he didn't really give me an answer one way or another, but he did say he owns a TT2 and a Hugo 2 as his bedside rig, so I have to think that there's something about that because they just work so well.
I don't think there's a synergy in terms of the way he voiced it, but there's a synergy in terms of his approach and my approach.
Yes, maybe that's it.
So
yes.
what impresses me about Dan is his engineering is first rate.
Yep.
And he sees problems and he wants to solve them.
Yes.
And he sees problems that make a difference to the sound, and then he tries to reduce those problems and keeps working at it. And so his distortion levels are just extraordinary.
Right.
You know, I mean, the numbers, he quoted me 1.0007% at 80 dB for 1 kilohertz. That number is just unbelievably small for a headphone. And again, that's something that I've never thought people would
not be possible 20 years ago, yeah.
And I went around their factory and saw the way that they match the individual drive units. So they'll have, 100 drive units, and each one out of that 100 will get matched to one another from the measurements.
Yes, and it has to be like minute.
It has to be minute, because otherwise your imagery left to right is off.
And the soundstage of the Stealth is
superb.
And the expanse, from what I'm hearing, I got to hear that. The expanse is supposed to be even bigger and more immersive of a soundstage.
I'll be trying that tonight.
Yes,
so.
Absolutely. That's going to be cool. Okay, so another thing, back to the filters. So for me personally, I like number 3 and 2, and you were saying 2 is the best filter. So tell our viewers a little bit about why 2 is the most optimal. And in most cases, that's green for the for
Mojo 2.
Mojo 2. Hugo 2. Hugo 2.
So on Mojo, I've actually got the filter built into it.
Right.
And the reason why we have these filters in there is because you need to roll off the high frequencies to get rid of noise above 20 kilohertz.
Right.
There's a lot of all 96 kilohertz recordings, 192 kilohertz recordings, which we're getting to hear a lot more of now.
Yeah, absolutely.
They've got a lot of noise and distortion of noise for above 24 kilohertz.
Right.
And if you filter that out, it sounds warmer and smoother because the noise for modulation is less.
Right.
And it's quite easy to hear that. Very easy to hear that.
Sure.
But
for most everyone, there is a difference in sound, people.
Yeah.
You got to just listen a little more intently.
But the trouble is, if I put that when I was doing the filters for the early stage before I had this DSP EQ, it meant that you'd roll off at 20 kilohertz.
Right.
And if somebody was doing a measurement, they could criticize Chord for not having it being ruler flat.
Sure.
It makes no difference to the performance, but so I had to put in the option of rolling it off.
Right.
So you can have it flat technically, or the rolling off for the best sound quality. So that's going from white to green. The other thing that you've got in TT2 and Dave and Hugo 2 is the filter, the WTA filter that goes from 16 FS or 16 times oversampled to 256 times oversampled. That WTA filter improves the sound quality.
Right.
You get to hear, and what it does, it's not quite the same as the WTA filter from 1FS to 16 times.
Right.
So from 48 kilohertz to 768 kilohertz.
Right.
That sounds different. This one, you get the changes in terms of speed and perceiving the starting and stopping of notes.
The dynamics are a little bit.
So it's like when you listen to a piano and someone presses the key, that initial sharp attack, the character of that, you can hear it much more easily when you've got the 256 FS filter engaged.
Okay, cool.
And I thought, that would be cool for people to hear the effect of a 16 FS to 256 FS filter.
Yeah.
And at the same time, when you lose that filter, you get a little bit more softness.
Right.
So technically, you're better off having it so that you can perceive
that,
the sharpness properly. But if your system is too sharp
or too bright,
too much, you want to tame that down.
Which is great, which is why you have options.
Which is why we have the options.
Yeah, very cool.
So
great
that's
answer.
why
It's a great answer.
The best answer
is filter 2 or the green.
Is filter 2 or the green.
Yeah.
And that's what you need to be moving towards.
Okay, got it. Perfect. Awesome. Let's check. I'm going to check the chat right now, see if we have any questions. Oh my goodness, we have a lot of questions. Sorry guys. Let's get caught up here. Where do I even begin? Let's go back up here. Yes, we've been talking about using he has been using the Stealth lately. Throw that in the broadcast. All right, let's see. Okay, Mojo 2 is awesome. So what? Somebody says they love the Mojo 2 so much they use that a lot now, and they don't miss the TT2 as much. I don't know. I don't know if I could ever miss my TT2 is, but that's pretty cool. Let's see.
Do you find it takes 30 minutes to warm up properly? No.
I've never had that.
It takes about 10 minutes. All the products take about 10 minutes to warm up.
But almost all electronics you should turn on and let warm up for a little bit, no matter what. Like, it's pretty standard.
Yeah, it's pretty standard. There's no break-in time. If you hear a change when you buy the product, it's because your brain is getting used to it.
Right.
It's not the product itself physically changing.
Right.
But it takes about 10 minutes.
Okay, that's good to know. 10 minutes. Let's see.
That's true. The colours are an issue for people.
I've never thought about that.
Yeah, 7% of the population is
I never
colourblind.
even thought about that.
Judy's colourblind.
Hazy, that's a good point. I never thought about that.
And that is an issue.
Yeah, I guess in that case you just have to memorize
the
order, or memorize the order. But yeah, that's true. I never thought about that. No, Penguins. He hasn't heard The Expanse yet, but he's planning on listening to it tonight.
I've heard it for about 30 seconds.
So yeah,
I'm not going to comment on that.
Not a real session yet.
Tonight it'll be the one when I listen to it properly.
Very good. All right, cool. So let's see here. Let me check here. We've been going for. Okay, that's pretty good. So if you guys have any other questions out here, we'll probably end and take any other questions. Man, I can't. Now you got me thinking about the House of Dragons, though, man. I don't know why. I'm just thinking like the second episode was just epic. I mean, it was the battle scene. I don't know. I don't want to do any spoilers for any of them that haven't seen it, but I thought about that. And then I've also been watching the Lord of the Rings too. What is it called? Rings of Power.
Yeah,
it's beautifully filmed. The story starts to develop a little more.
Okay, I've only seen I don't know whether I've seen the first and the second. I think I've only seen the first.
Yeah, the first was a little slow.
And
it was a little slow. House of Dragons got right into it pretty much.
Yeah.
Let's see if there's any other questions. I think that's probably it.
That's
so
cool.
Rob, thank you, man.
It's
This
been
was
great.
awesome. Yeah, it's great hanging out with you, and we'll have to do this again. So when any of your new products, we can always do it from location-wise
Sure.
too. So from my studio to your studio or whatever. And
Well, I'll be here next year. So,
and yeah, exactly. So thank you so much for joining us, and thank you guys, all of you, for watching. And if you didn't get to watch this live, of course, you can always watch this on the rewind. Just don't forget to follow this channel, The Source AV Design, on YouTube, and follow all of Chord's channels as well, Chord Electronics. And if you have any other questions, you can always drop them in the comments of the video. And don't forget to smash the like button for us and share with anybody you think might be interested in seeing this or hearing this. Thank you all, and thank you very much,
Thank
sir.
you.
Cheers. Everybody have
It's
a
been a
wonderful
pleasure.
day. And stay tuned on our YouTube. We're going to be live streaming for the next 2 days. Interviews, product releases. So if you want to see something or hear something for me to do a video on, I got a pretty advanced setup here. I'll be here all weekend. Leave me a comment and let me know. All right, everybody. Everybody have a
Cheers.
wonderful weekend. Cheers.